Hey, hey, welcome to another episode of LGOtv Big Talk. And why Big Talk? Because I hate small talk. And my guest today is somebody who cuts right to the chase. He has absolutely no patience for small talk, for wasting time. In fact, we normally start at 10 a.m. live and he's like, you want to do it? You want to get started? I'm like, yeah, let's go. So we're starting a little early because if you're not 5 minutes early, you're late. Right, Joe?
On time is late. I drilled that into the kids this summer. I had some kids camps on the farm that were very informal and very, well, let's just say that I would have been arrested by social services had anybody seen how hard we were pushing the kids up and down the mountain. And one of the lessons we taught the kids they had to repeat every day was on time is late. If any kids showed up in the morning at 5:15 a.m. to start the day, if they were on time, they had to wear a weight vest the rest of the day in addition to everything they had to do. So,
oh, man. All right. So Joe Sena, founder of the Spartan race. If any of you have done a burpee, this is the man you have to blame. If you've done a burpee and a Spartan race, you probably love him for it. If you've done a burpee and not a Spartan race, sign up for a Spartan race because you're going to figure out that burpees actually matter. Now, I grew up in Miami, and I like to tell the story about how when I first got my driving license, I went to the airport to pick up my parents who had left us, inexplicably alone for the whole weekend in 1980s Miami, me and my, 18-year-old sister. I was 16. And I got there about 5 minutes after the plane landed thinking like, all right, great. I'm going to go in. You walk right up to the gate because this is like before 9/11. So you could, wander all over the airport. And I was a few minutes, early for the flight. But the flight, of course, got in early. So my parents didn't see me, got in the car and they left. So I drove 45 minutes all the way back home because, you can't I was paging them on the find a white phone and, whatever, or the blue paging phone. And I couldn't find them. And there was no cell phones or internet or, running water back in the day. And I got home and they're sitting on the couch and they were like, where were you? We were there. And I was like, I was there. But yeah, so if you're not early, you're late. And I'd love for you to start by telling us the story about growing up in Queens, where you started this pool cleaning business. Well, just cleaning one guy's house, right? One guy's pool. And he drilled this into you to start with.
That guy was how I learned this lesson. He was my neighbor. He was the head of the Banana organized crime family. I was pre-teens. I was 11 or 12. And he said, why don't you, my family was getting divorced. It was a bit messy. And he said, why don't you come over and clean my pool on Saturday? And he probably said it with that same, no smile. Come over and clean my pool, cigar, and
not so much an offer as an order.
Come over and clean my pool on Saturday. Yeah. Choice. And I got there at 8, maybe a few minutes late, maybe a few minutes early, and he sat me down and he said, if you need to be somewhere at 8, you get there 7:45. And then he continued to give me a few lifelong lessons. I apologize for the noise in the background, but I can't communicate. You can't hear it. Good. The guy said to me, if you're going to clean my pool, you also have to clean the shed and you've got to clean the lawn furniture and you got to clean the windows, even though I'm not paying you for that. And most importantly, Joe, the third lesson, never ask for money. You will get paid when you provide value. And I've taken those lessons with me throughout life, and they came from the most unlikely source, right? A mob boss. But that neighborhood I grew up in was, for whatever reason, 4 of the 5 crime family bosses lived in this little neighborhood, 1 mile by 2 miles, a bunch of houses on postage stamps, perfectly square streets. And, as a kid, you wanted to see where at least I did. Am I tough enough, right? Like, could I be a guy someday that has rolls of $100 bills in his pocket and has a Cadillac and earns respect and, long collared shirts? Like, could I be that guy? And so I think part of my life has been trying to figure out, am I tough enough?
Yeah. Cause those are you looked up to them, right? You wanted to be them.
We all did. I think if you grow up in wherever you grow up, no matter who you are, there's some North Star. There's some person, man or woman, family, whatever it may be, that you aspire to be as a kid. And for me and my friends, it was the mob bosses. They had the respect. They had the fireworks on 4th of July. They seemed to have no trouble. They had the biggest houses, nicest cars. So we wanted that. And by the way, they've done studies in Africa where very fast marathon runners come from in specific villages, and they're trying to figure out, is it the water? Is it the air? Is it the training? And invariably what it is it's exactly the same thing. There's a guy or a girl that won the Boston Marathon and has a Mercedes and a nice house on a hill, and every kid sees that as their way out.
Yeah. 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 I think those studies are fascinating that say that, if the 5 people closest to you are obese, you're going to be obese. And what's so interesting about that is that the studies further show that if the 5 people that you are emotionally closest to, even if they live in another country, are obese, you're still going to be obese, right? Like, you really do. The people who you see who inspire you become the people that you become. But, I think something we get wrong about people who are members of the mob or gangs or organized crime is that we think, oh, well, they're just lazy. They don't want to work. They don't want to do that. And honestly, I mean, if you never met anybody who's more incentivized and more organized and more disciplined than somebody who's an organized crime family, because there is a system and there is a structure, and you got to show up and you got to do the hard things. And I've been involved in a nonprofit here in Boston for 10 years that takes these kids off the corners and just puts them in a different environment and gives them education because they're incentivized. They just have the wrong incentives. Right? They're organized, but they're not getting there. So I sort of feel like, in a way, you're kind of like the mob boss of Spartan, right? You're like telling people, you're getting them going. You're just taking their desire to be comfortable, and you're just helping them by showing them that there's a different way. I mean, I think that a lot of what you learned on the street is still here.
Well, a couple of things on that. One is, I was just with a friend of mine who has 3 children. We have 4 children here in the house. And what I'm about to say, lots of us talk about in families where we've got a roof over our head and we're not living in a
Sure.
gang-riddled neighborhood. We've got a little more privilege, let's call
Yes.
it. And I would say, I think we question ourselves as parents and say, like, gee, that's the thing the kid's missing. Even though we don't want the kid to be around that, the kid probably should be around that a little, because it makes them a little street smart. It makes them have a little bit of that fight for milk attitude. And so I think we need some of that, even if we have to manufacture it in our children's lives. Push them. I call it, push them below the line a little bit so they appreciate the line, right? We don't want them living above the line all the time, then they don't know what it's like. And then as far as being the mob boss of Spartan, I would say I'm an inspirator, right? Like and to your point about this book you're working on, this was a hobby. My mom was into yoga. My mom was the antithesis of everything I just described. She found a yoga studio and a health food store in the 1970s. She was advocating for cold showers and vegan diets and meditating before anybody even knew what the hell it was. I certainly didn't want any part of it. She was a crackpot, and from my perspective, she was bohemian to hippie-ish. My dad and everybody in the neighborhood wanted raviolis and sausage and peppers and guns, right? They don't want monks in the living room chanting.
Yeah.
So mom,
because like being like 15 isn't awkward enough, right? Like, you got this.
Imagine inviting your Italian friends over and convince them that you are tough enough and that these are the guys you're going to be around. These are going to be your friends, and
because you'd make friends with friends, like you'd call around the neighborhood, like, "Hey, Bobby, what's your mom making for dinner?" And then you go play at their house, right? And hope you got invited to stay. So like, my mom's making tofu,
and then there were pictures of her guru on the wall, and that was weird, and beads and robes and incense. And so my parents were divorced, and I wanted to be with my dad. My sister wanted to be with my dad as much as possible, just get away from that. But so I would say I'm more an inspirator, and I would say Spartan is the integration of that mob, tough exterior work ethic mixed with my mom's stuff of the yoga and the meditation and the plant-based diet. So it's really those two ideas coming together. And what did I really do? All I do is put on the event, and people come, and I say to them, if if you get to the finish line, most people can't even get to the starting line. But if you get to the finish line, you'll know at the finish. You'll know what this was all about. And we've had 7 million people do these races. Unfortunately, right now, I'm basically, if we use the analogy of the neighborhood, I'm basically in jail right now with COVID. I'm handcuffed. I'm in solitary confinement. I can't have events. The only place where we're killing it right now, we were in 45 countries. What is the only country where you tell me, where we are killing it right now, where it's back in business and people are coming to events? You tell me the country. 45 countries we're in.
Japan.
Nope.
Vietnam.
China.
It has to be in Asia, because just discipline, right?
Well, I mean, it's funny, right? Because China, this whole COVID thing started there. They are out of the woods. They're back in business. I had 10,000 kids at a Spartan event 2 weeks ago.
Wow. Japan
is coming. Taiwan is coming. Korea is coming. Like all of Asia. But China, there's no more. Like, it's over. We're back. They're back in business. We are the only country in the world that is knife fighting between Democrats and Republicans, and when we should open, and masks and no masks, and football and no football. Anyway, I'm going down a rabbit hole, but.
Yeah, I mean, like, this should never become a political issue in the first place. I mean, that's just it's crazy. I heard something yesterday that said, I think it was Vietnam. It was either Vietnam or Thailand. I can't remember which, but the total number of deaths they had are the same number of deaths that we have per hour in the United States, because they just went immediate lockdown, mask mandate, all of that. And there's just discipline. So let's go back to the thing about kids. I know you just had this crazy, you've had this crazy kids camp where you had kids that you had on the farm, and you tricked them into doing all this, free labor and all that. They complained about it, and then they thanked you at the end of it. But this idea of introducing grit and a little bit of adversity and some hardship into our kids' lives. I mean, I'm like you. I'm like a privileged person, or I drive my kids to their fancy private school in my fancy car. And I was talking to somebody once who was like, "Oh, like, my theory of parenting is that I'm not a helicopter mom. I'm a bulldozer mom. I go ahead of my kids and make sure there's no problems. Then I don't have to helicopter in at the last minute." And I remember thinking to myself, your kids are going to be so fucked up. Like, it's terrible. And yet at the same time, I'm probably raising pretty soft kids too.
I think we all are in the first world. I think we're raising pretty soft kids. It's instinctual, right? I think as moms and dads, we, our job, our legacy, hardware and software, is to protect the kid, make sure they don't get eaten by a lion or fall off a cliff and freeze in the snow. So, but the threats out there are really perceived threats because of the internet. The devices are so amazing and everybody knows this. I'm sorry, I'm telling you what you already know, but like, that device knows the kind of news you like. Mm-hmm. And it also knows that as humans, we are more attracted to stories that create fear. So it figures out what side of the line you're on. It delivers you the stories you want, sprinkles in a bunch of fear, and you end up consuming for 4 hours a day a bunch of bullshit, which subconsciously is getting you to further bubble wrap your children.
Yeah.
And it's creating a negative downward spiral, in my opinion. So, I was locked down with COVID. We were on the farm in Vermont this summer, and I had nothing to do because I had to cancel 325 events for a little 400 people. So I said, perfect time for us to get our kids way out of their comfort zone. Let's invite, 17 friends and family over, kids. And I obviously had to sell it as like a fun summer camp, even though it's going to be nothing but fun.
Yeah.
Nothing close to fun. And I had the kids. I brought in my friend, Mountain Warfare School veteran, who's all business. I had an Olympic wrestler there. And I even had a philosopher who was nice to them for an hour a day and taught them a little philosophy. But other than that, it was carrying rocks up and down the mountain, waking up at 5:15 a.m. for PT, making sure they worked as a group, constantly being punished, sitting in ice cold water. It was the antithesis. It was exactly opposite of anything anybody's kids are doing anywhere in the country. And unbeknownst to me, the kids were texting their parents at night. Like at night when they would go to bed, I was kind and let them sleep indoors. and go to
It's a
bed.
real footfall that you didn't take their phones at the start, right?
Well, an hour they can use their phones because 14-hour days for 14 days they did. So just never considered that they would get on their phones, and literally we were able to acquire the texts after the 14 days from the parents, and most of them read something like this: "Mom, Dad, I can't believe you sent me here. This guy is nuts. This is not a real camp. This is like being in prison. You have to get us out of here." And if the parents didn't respond, they sent it to the parents' friends. And sure enough, before you knew it, there was like a union formed amongst all the parents going up against me, trying to retrieve the kids from the farm. And I pushed back and I said, it's the biggest mistake you could make, because, the neuroscientists that I interviewed tell me when you take on something hard, especially as a child, and this camp was hard, if you don't finish it, it leaves a physical gap in the brain that the neuroscientists can see in the brain. And so your kids not only will have a physical gap in their brain, but they're going to have some friends that did finish the camp, and they'll be the ones that didn't finish the camp. And what do you think the conversation in the neighborhood is going to be this weekend or this winter? So anyway, I put them through hell. I did 3 camps like that. Needless to say, there's not a lot of demand for them. A lot of parents, thousands of parents reach out. There's not a lot of kids that want to go to the hell camp. We call it Camp Spartan. You could Google Camp Spartan. You'll find the YouTube videos. You should check out the videos. But we tortured them. And by the way, when you watch the videos, it's not like they were in a Mexican prison. I mean, it's not that bad.
Not that bad. I mean, maybe not so great, but I think it would be great. I think it'd be great for our kids. I would have loved to send my kids there. They were farting around all summer. But that idea of finishing something and finding yourself on the other side of it, I think is super interesting. I mean, I know, you interviewed me on your podcast, and we've talked a lot, and you may or may not remember, but I ran my first mile ever of my life when I turned 39. Like, I was not an athlete growing up. I went to computer sleepaway camp. That was the camp I went to. It was not pretty in any stretch of the imagination. And now, I've run marathons. I'm a competitive rower, a master's rower. I'm the reigning lightweight champion of the, 2000 meter indoor, 40 to 49 year olds. Woo! Indoor rowing, and finding that physical endurance, that physical gear late in life has really changed who I am and what I think I'm capable of. But the reason I was able to do it was that every step along the way, there was a community that founded that was built around me, either by the team or by the boot camp or whatever the thing was that I'm doing. And, the Spartan races that I've done, I see that because people go and they do it together. And I think, you said like, well, what was I doing, this summer? I had to cancel all these events. I mean, you were showing up every day. You were doing this, 5:30 a.m. call. I was on some of them, the morning calls that you did, throughout the day. You had calls every half hour, every hour, all day, every day. And then you were working out like 17 times a day. So you were showing up for your community in ways that I think really were lessons in leadership.
Yeah, or just insanity.
Maybe.
I just remember on that first day, like March 13th, and thinking, the standards don't change. And so if we woke up early before the pandemic, before the lockdown, we're going to wake up even earlier during the lockdown. If we didn't wear pajamas all day walking around the house and we went to work, we're going to go to work and put on some clothes. So I just held to some standards, and I think it motivated a lot of people. I'm happy to say, I'm glad you're telling me you noticed, because it was a lot of work. We did, I think it was 120 days in a row of 4 workouts a day, and that 5:30 a.m. call and a bunch of community calls. But I think it helped us stay in touch with the community. It was extremely hard, but at the end of my life, or even a conversation with you right now, it's kind of cool to be able to say, hey, we did 120 days in a row.
Yeah.
Right? I don't think we would be as excited saying, man, Joe, I can't believe you binge watched 120 shows on Netflix. Like, that would not be as cool. Right?
That would decidedly not be as cool. I so many people I've seen posting on Facebook, like, I've reached the end of Netflix. What do you have for me to watch? And I just want to be like, nothing. Like, don't stop. Like, don't watch anything. Like, go watch the leaves outside. Like, go do something. I don't get that.
Do something. What a cool T-shirt that would be.
Yeah, do anything.
Do anything.
Just fucking move, right? I said to my husband long ago that I want my legacy to be that somebody says just that their life was just a little bit better for the fact that I was in it. Doesn't that's about just a little bit better, but I want my gravestone to say, get the fuck on with it. Like, just go, leave. Like, stop standing around. Like, go. So
I was thinking for a gravestone, we could do like a kettlebell, and people could do kettlebell swings when they're there.
that would be amazing. Yeah. So every November, me and my friends, we do a 10,000 kettlebell swing challenge. So, you're welcome to join us.
I like it. Can I get a little one? Can I use a little Spartan kettlebell, maybe something small?
No, you gotta use your, well, I love the story that you tell where you said that you asked your wife if she'd order a 20-pound kettlebell and a 44-pound one shows up, and you were like, well, I can't be a fraud. Right?
That's exactly what happened. And carried that thing around for quite some time pre-COVID, all my trips. I remember being in airports with it, and you're carrying this kettlebell, and they tell you in Malaysia you're in the wrong terminal. It's pretty far. Pretty far, but you're in the wrong location. Those walks with that thing, and then trying to juggle your bags and everything else, a bit of a nightmare. In India, they would take my kettlebell and put it in somebody else's suitcase, and then tell me when I got to the other end, when I got to, got off the plane, to find that suitcase and unzip it and grab my kettlebell out. Now, you just hope in that suitcase they didn't have a bunch of expensive items that got smashed up along the way.
Yeah. And, it's not like it's not mayhem in the airport in India, right?
No, it is crazy.
People.
Yeah.
Okay, so
I've been traveling, by the way, and I was in LA a couple of days ago, and there was a lot of people in the airport. And all my previous trips, there's been like 3 people in the airport, literally.
Really?
Yeah, there was a lot of people in the LA airport. I was in the thousands. I was surprised.
That's amazing. I haven't traveled yet. I traveled 250,000 miles last year. So my last trip was the end of February, and I was supposed to go in March on like the college tour with the kid and the whole thing, and then that didn't happen. But I don't know. I think that this has been a really nice pause for me to just be able to say, like, when life goes back to normal, is the normal I want to go back to the life that I want? And, I think the answer for a lot of people is no. But I think that statement of, you don't change, like your principles don't change, like who you were before, like if you got up early, if you got dressed, if you went to work, like those are the things that you still do. And somebody said something to me the other day, like, crisis doesn't change you, it reveals you. And I think we just go deeper into the kind of person we are. But I think it becomes so even more important about the people you surround yourself with. So, this morning, I had a couple of my rowing teammates, and we have ergs that are set up in my, my 2-car garage. So they're each 6 feet apart. And, we get up and we do rowing workouts. And, that's just what we do. We show up. So before we got on the show, I told you that I'm doing these interviews as a way to do research for my next book, which is going to be called Wonder Hell. And it's that moment where you've done something, it's working, you think it actually has more promise than even maybe you thought it might have. And it's amazing. It's humbling. It's wonderful that anybody wants to spend 5 minutes showing up for this race, listening to you talk, anything that you're doing. And also, you've never been so fucking tired in your entire life. It's hell. But it's also like, deep down in there, you're feeling the burden that you want to keep going. And it's not because, you have to. It's not because you're like, I need the money, I need this, I need the other. It's because you realize that you have more potential than you realized you have inside of you. And the burden of potential weighs on you. But the burden of potential, I would argue, is only as big as your ego. So some people don't feel that potential because they don't realize that they're made for more. And other people feel that burden on them. Where, like, when my book launches at number 2 on the Washington Post bestseller list, I'm like, I've been on the Today Show. I want to be in Good Morning America. I want to be under the oak tree with Oprah. Got to talk to someone. Why not me? Right? Like, what was the moment when you started this race and you got your friends to show up, and then more people showed up and more people showed up, that you were like, actually, there's something here. There's more to this.
Well, so a couple of answers to that. One is I believe, and I've charted it out, right? Because I've been doing business for 40 years. I've been doing races for 25 years, maybe more, and then putting on events for 20 years. So for whatever reason, the tapes have been playing in my head on what is that journey, which you described, right? That journey towards success, however you define it, to being a monk, to being to being a great husband, whatever that journey is, a business person. There's no greater excitement than the moment you embark on that journey. Right before you leave the shore, the boat is polished, right? Everybody's on, you're dressed well, everybody's waving, the horn blows, you bang the champagne against the boat.
There's no icebergs out there.
Oh yeah, it's beautiful. The sun is shining, rainbows in the distance, birds chirping. And then,
There's no one more idealistic than an entrepreneur.
Yeah. And you go straight downhill. By the way, it's the same thing if you're embarking on a marathon run or a 500-meter row, whatever it may be. It is beautiful.
But my husband said the other day, that a second marriage is the triumph of hope over knowledge. Right? We've been, original spouses, but still, like, there is the idealism of a start. Yeah.
And so now you leave the shore and you embark on this journey, and the boat, sails away, and then the storm rolls in, or you start training for that marathon you committed to, or you're now 3 years into the marriage and trying to have children, whatever it may be. Like, excitement starts to wane. You've got to delay gratification, right? You do everything you used to do anymore. You can't keep grabbing the cookies and the marshmallows and stuff. You're committed to that journey.
Yeah.
And you can't waste time. You got to focus on the things that matter to make sure that boat is sailing to its destination. The naysayers pile on, right? And I told you so. I told you it was going to be stormy. I told you had the wrong kind of boat. It's wood and it should have been fiberglass, and this is the wrong time of year to sail. And invariably, most people quit in that area I call, the valley of hell, or the valley of death, and this area you're calling wonder hell. And for us with Spartan, it was no different. It was really exciting in the early days to think about, let's change a bunch of lives. Let's put on a really cool event named Spartan. And 700 people showed up, then 1,500 people, and 3,000, and it was fun and exciting. But then it becomes real. And then the boat leaves the shore, and the storms roll in, and the birds fly away, and the rainbow's gone. And we're in 45 countries and millions of folks, and I've got this competitor called Tough Mudder, nipping at my heels every day, and got to make payroll, 500 people, and but then you get an email. And that email says, "Hey, you changed my life. I quit my job. I started a business. I'm back with my wife, back with my husband. I lost 300 pounds, no longer drinking, no longer doing drugs." And, that's like, for that moment, I guess, when you're way out in the ocean, there's like a rainbow for a second, right? It's like, that's why we're doing this. Yeah. And so I'm fighting through. And then I finally see land in the distance. Finally, right? I've been through 12 hurricanes. The boat took on water. We had to repair the boat. We were attacked by sharks and whales. Finally see land in the distance, and COVID hits.
And this is like, it's not just you finally see land. Like, you had a 10-year battle with Tough Mudder also. Like, you finally got through that. Like, you got through everything.
We got through everything. We were about to get on a dock, 3,000 miles away.
And a torpedo.
And a torpedo came and took out the boat. Right now I'm just paddling in the water, treading water. So it is what it is. I love what I do. I want to get back to doing what I do. And anybody that's taking on something big and challenging, which is the only stuff worth doing, just need to know that with great success comes great sacrifice. And make sure you're really prepared. Look in the mirror and say, I can do. It's like giving birth, I would imagine, right? It's like it sounds exciting in the beginning, but I would imagine it's pretty hard.
Yeah, well, I had an unplanned C-section and then a second planned C-section, so I've had facials that were harder than that second C-section. But there is this moment you're like, we're gonna have children, it's gonna be great, and you're gonna like imagine yourself walking down the street with your little pram, and everything is wonderful, and then you get to the point of your pregnancy where you look down and you realize the size of the thing that's growing inside of you, and you're like, shit, this has got to come out of me
Yeah.
some way, and that's not going to be good. Then you have like the next couple of months of pregnancy where you have to make peace with the fact that you have to go through this super hard thing. And I feel it's a little bit like when I signed up for that first marathon and I told the world on Facebook I was going to do it because I'm slow, but I live in Boston. I'd run a 5K. I was like, I could do, maybe if I doubled it, I could do a 10K. And I did the 10K and I was like, well, if I doubled that, I could do a half marathon. And then of course I'm running down, Com Ave in December, and I'm seeing people training for the marathon. And I was like, I could do this, but of course I'm old and slow. So I couldn't qualify. So I had to do a charity run. And so you announce to the world that you're going to do this because you have to raise money. And then Marathon Monday comes along and it's literally 92 degrees. And you're like, well, what am I going to do now? Right. I've got vasovagal syncope. I'm going to pass out somewhere along the way, but you do it, you get out there and you do it because you've committed, right? Like, you're just like, you have integrity. Like, you never compromise integrity. You just like, you said you were going to do it. You do the thing that you said you were going to do. And at like mile 16, my husband put ice, like Ziploc bags full of ice in my jog bra. And I remember at mile 17, I saw a friend and she's like, that's so smart. Where'd those come from? And I was like, where did these come from? Like, I was so out of it. It sort of reminds me of a story you told about doing 10,000 burpees. And at 4,000, you're like, I don't even know my name anymore. Like, you get to a point and you're like, I don't know. But at mile 20, which is the farthest I had gone in training, because that's what you do, I reached a point where I was like, there are only 6 miles left. It's a 10K. I've done a 10K before. I could probably do a 10K. But there's a voice inside your head that says, this is amazing. You're going to do it. And at the end, no matter what, run, walk, crawl, cartwheel, you're going to be a marathon, or someone's going to put a heat sheet around you and a medal like you're a fucking superhero. And it's going to be amazing. And then another voice inside your head goes, this is the dumbest thing you've ever done. You're going to die out here. Just stop. It's so easy to stop. Look, there's some water right there. That person just sat down. You could do that too. So how do you stop that voice? Like, didn't you want to quit? Because I think there's only, like, if there's you and those two voices, and the only one who decides what happens is you. Like, you have to be the one to make that decision. And after 20 miles, after a 90 days or 100 days, you're still like bailing out the boat that got torpedoed by COVID. How do you keep going? How do you, stop those voices?
Couple ways. One is, you got to go into it. When you leave shore, you got to just really have a conversation with yourself and those around you that there's going to be rough seas, and the boat's going to take on water, and we're going to hate each other, and we're going to question our existence and why we're doing this. And but even that practice is not enough to really know what mile 20 feels like in the run, or whatever, or giving birth at 3 hours in. So you got to do it. You got to experience hard things. You got to practice adversity. So maybe you don't do the 3,000 mile trek with the boat day one, but like, I had friends that were attempting to row across the Atlantic, and they would go up in Ireland up there in some rough seas, and they would practice for 24 hours, right? And so you practice some really hard shit, and you try to get your head straight. And the other thing that I like to do is just one bite at a time. So, all right, look, I can't envision the remaining 6 miles here. This sucks. I want to quit. I get it. My legs hurt. My knees hurt. I just passed my parents on the side of the road. They told me that I look terrible, right? I don't have to make it 6 miles. I got to make it 100 yards. And I got to make it another 100 yards and another 100 yards. It's really the only way to do it, because otherwise you get decision fatigue. It's just too much to decide on. Sir Ernest Shackleton lasted 2 years frozen in ice with his men. They didn't lose one man on that exploration years ago, and they just took it one day at a time. I met a guy that did 32 years in prison, 32 years, many of which were in self-isolation. Turned out he was wrongfully accused. They let them. So there's nothing you and I have talked about so far in this live that even comes close to doing 32 years being wrongfully accused. And like he said, he was eating toilet paper with toothpaste because they weren't giving him food at times. And so, you know, he can't deal with 32 years in his mind. He's got to deal with today.
Yeah.
Hour. Let me just get it right. And so that's the way you do it. Sounds easier talking about it here, but you got to make sure also that it lines up with your true north, with your purpose. Like if for me, I want to change 100 million lives. I really believe in that mission. That's my purpose. It's my true north. And so in those moments, in those dark places where it's like, what the hell am I doing? This business sucks. I get back to that purpose. Wait a minute. I'm doing it to change 100 million lives. Then fortunately enough, an email comes in and says, hey, Joe, you changed my life. And I'm like, all right, I got another day in me.
Yeah, it's like a steady strip, a steady drip. You kind of need that, just like a little bit, just to remind you. You know, there's this whole, you know, Simon Sinek start with why type of thing. But I think the true north is, you know, I talk about this in Limitless, is it's like, what's your calling? Like, what do you really want to be doing? And does the work that you're doing actually connect to that calling? And I think what happens is so many of us, first of all, like we don't set our goals high enough. We don't let that calling be something that kind of gives us a little bowel shake, right? Like, I think if your goals don't scare the shit out of you, they're probably set a little too low. But then we get busy with like all this nonsense that doesn't actually really matter. And I think when you're in that wonder hell moment, or the valley of hell, the valley of death, we do the easy things because we can just say like, well, I'll just get this little thing done and it'll make me feel good, right? Like when my kids were really little, I loved doing dishes, right? Which like no one will ever say like I love doing dishes, but I loved doing the dishes because I didn't get anything done. Like I started my last business when my first one was 6 weeks old, and I didn't know how to be a parent and I didn't know how to be an entrepreneur. I sucked at both of those things, but I could do the dishes because they had a beginning, a middle, and an end. And then I felt like I got something done. But I think we don't, you know, I read something you wrote a while ago about your business principles, and one of them is seek the hard way. And I think, you know, that's maybe where the maybe where the obstacle idea came from. But we don't seek the hard way. We try to just do the easy stuff, and then it's busy. We're just there's no impact in the busy work.
No doubt about it. I mean, the number one motivator for us outside of food and sex is the avoidance of discomfort. So wake up in the morning and you want to get on those rowing machines, and for some reason you're checking your phone and you're making coffee, whatever you're doing. And if you really look back on yourself and say, why the hell am I doing these other things? Why am I doing dishes? I need to be on the rowing machine, because subconsciously your legacy hardware and software is saying, don't go in the garage. Don't do the rowing. It's
going to be hard. It's going to be cold.
So, yeah. and we have that legacy hardware and software because it protected us, just like we talked about earlier with the parents. It kept us from falling off the cliff, freezing to death in the tundra. So, but we just have to remember, we don't really need that anymore. So shut that voice off and focus on getting the hard things done, especially early in the morning, because those are the rewarding things. Those are the things we talked about here.
Yeah, and I think it sets the tone of the whole day. You know, I had a friend of mine who was a speaker, and he was like, "This is so hard. I have to figure out the lighting and the sound and the this and the that and the product." I was like, "We're not digging ditches here. Like, we're not, you know, cleaning fish all day long. Like, this isn't hard. Like, we're so fucking lucky. Like, we're so lucky.
We are lucky. It's gratitude versus resentment. You know, have gratitude for how lucky we are." And if you ever can't find any gratitude, just remember you're alive. So find it there. You could be dead. Hey, Joe, how was that flight? How was the flight? It landed. That's how it was. Because it didn't have to land.
But you don't want to complain about how slow the Wi-Fi was, because that's what we do, right? We complain about how slow the Wi-Fi is when we should be like, it's amazing that I could be in LA 2 days ago and now I'm here and everything's great.
It's unbelievable. Yeah. We ended. I'm alive. How you doing today? I'm alive. That's my answer. I'm alive. How could I can't complain. I'm on the right side of the dirt.
Yeah. My grandmother used to say any day above ground's a good day.
It's a good day.
Yeah. She also used to say that diamonds are like orgasms. A woman can never have too many of either. So, you know, she had a lot of good statements. Yeah, but like here's the thing. Like I think that we do complain, and if anybody's anything to complain about right now, right? It's someone like you who like your entire business was torpedoed by COVID, and yet here you are, right? You're showing up for your community. You're not making any money being on those calls every day, 120 days in a row. You're not making any money doing all those workouts, but you're showing up. You're consistently showing up for your community. So as you are thinking, like, I mean, so what's the next thing? How do you keep growing? How do you keep incentivized? Is the plan to like bring Spartan back to where it was, or did you learn something in this whole thing that you're like, we're going to do something a little bit differently now? Like, what do you take out of this?
Yeah, we're going to get back to where it was, knock on wood. Once this election is over, whoever wins, hopefully the insanity stops and we get back to business, because no one could afford no economy could afford what's going on. And not that any death is a good death, but I would say anybody who's at risk, stay in the house, pull down the curtains, hide from everyone until there's a vaccine. Everybody else, let's let this thing loose and get it over with. And we want to get back to business. So plus people need it. People need to have a date on the calendar, whether it's a marathon or a Spartan race, Tough Mudder, whatever it may be, so that they train and they stay healthy for it. Otherwise, people don't do the work because of what we spoke about, that legacy hardware and software. And then obviously we've had a moment in time where we could catch up on our technology deficit and launch things like subscription, and somehow put together 45 disparate websites I had all over the world in 45 countries. So I have a lot of work to do, foundational work that I never got done. We never got done. So we're gonna come out. We're gonna come out of this a lot better. I just hope, a little bit of hope in there. I just hope it's sooner rather than later, because otherwise I got to move to Sweden or China.
Yeah. Well, so you've lived all over the world. You lived in Japan. We were supposed to speak at an American Dream U event at Camp Zama in Japan. You were out there, and I don't know why it didn't happen, but I was actually more afraid of having to do workouts with you if you were there at Camp Zama than having to do PT with the with the guys in the Army at 0600. So thank you for not being able to show up for that.
No problem.
So let's talk about burpees. When did you do your first burpee? There's nobody in Queens in organized crime is out there doing burpees in the morning. Where did the burpees come from?
I just thought of it as you said it. I've never answered the question. I don't think anybody's ever asked me that question, but my mom was doing sun salutations in the living room in 73. So it's very much like a burpee.
Yeah.
Right. And so downward dog, upward dog, like very much like a burpee. And I think in school, I think we used to do something similar to a burpee, right? And when they used to have phys ed in schools, and then the actual burpee had to be, I started racing in the mid 90s. So like 25 years ago, and I just tried to biohack, to hack any way I could to get fitter faster, because the races I was doing were very, very long, multi-day events. And you couldn't really train for multiple days for a multi-day event. So I had to figure out really painful ways to pack it all in a shorter amount of time. And burpees and sprints. And I used to do this prison workout I had where the only guy that would do it with me was somebody who had done time in prison. But I wouldn't do it. And it was, we used to do 125 sets of weights in the gym in an hour. So we hit every body part. Everything we did was like 15 reps or more. And it was 125 sets in 1 hour. And you left exhausted. It was everything you had to do that. And everybody quit on me except for one guy who had done like 5 years in prison. So it became the prison workout. But I don't think we had burpees in there then. That was probably early 90s.
So was it 60 minutes because that was the time he had in the yard? So you had to be efficient with his time.
Yeah, I don't know why we came up with 60 minutes, but it just, the more, my life is such that the more challenging it is, the more interested I am. So that's probably why we said 60 minutes.
Is that like an adrenaline junkie thing? Is that like an addiction? I've been so fascinated. I've started getting into doing a little bit more, ultra stuff in the last couple of years. And I've been so fascinated about the overlap between people who are recovering addicts and the ultra world. And I think that it maybe is the same genetics, but it's manifesting differently. Where does that come from? That like sort of all in, the bigger the better.
It's definitely an addiction, attribute. And there's a great book called The Edison Gene. I can't remember the author's name, but he argues that folks that have ADD, they have a remnant gene that were from hunter-gatherers. And that remnant gene would allow us to scan our environment, which resembles ADD. We're looking all around. And then we hone in on a deer or an apple tree or whatever it is, right? We hone in and we get so focused, we won't let go. And so I think that's what that is. And then, I mean, with drugs and alcohol, whatever that thing is, like, it does release a ton of chemicals in the brain and creates dopamine pathways and serotonin, and you just want more of it after you've tasted it, even though it sucks along the way. And so it's a healthy addiction. I'd rather people get addicted to this than some of the other things people get addicted to.
Yeah, I mean, food's the same thing, right?
Yeah,
same thing. Or TV, or even, we were talking about earlier, the phone, right? These phones are created to addict us, right?
No doubt about it. I mean, the executives at big tech, they don't even want their kids on phones and devices. So they know this is the new cigarette. This is the new cigarette.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so true. I remember reading that at one point, seeing that, like Steve Jobs didn't give his kid an iPhone. And I was like,
Yeah.
That's interesting. Right. Have another cigarette, kid. How much screen time do you have every day?
As a kid or now?
Now.
Now I have way too much. I mean, from the moment I got up, I did my workout, and now I'm going to be on a computer all day. So I said in my life, the one thing I didn't want to do was sit at a desk and be typing all day. And that's exactly what I do. So it sucks. Yeah.
It's interesting. I mean, I think, but like you're at a desk and you're typing and you have the screen, but like, do you have like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter? Like, do you have that on your phone, or do you not do that stuff?
I don't check any of that stuff. I don't look at any of that stuff. I'm an email junkie. I'm trying to dig through my emails nonstop.
Do you have a system or anything to like hack that or handle it? You just keep going till it's empty. Do you need inbox zero?
Yeah, I need inbox zero. I have an inbox zero mentality.
Yeah, because you're a completist, right? Like, if we're going to sign up for 10,000 burpees, you're going to do the 10,000 burpees. Like, you didn't get them done this is a story, right? Like, you started there was a Facebook page. You asked people to share it.
Yeah, my new social media team. I was doing 300 burpees every day, and my new social media team. Don't quote me, but I think when we hit 1 million or 3 million followers, they said for every share or comment we get, our founder, Joe, will do a burpee. And I think it was like 10,124 or something. And so it was a Wednesday. I was at Reebok. We had done a deal with Reebok. I was in their offices. Reebok was very connected to CrossFit. And this text comes in on my phone while in the meeting. Says, hey, you got to get 10,124 burpees done sometime this week. Social media guys had no idea what that meant. Right? Like, and the most I had ever done was 300 in a row, because that's what I did every day, was 300. But there were many, many days in a row I had done 300. And so I figured, all right, I can't really think about this. I just got to go for it. So I'll start Friday night at midnight. I'll do chunks of 100 burpees, 100 at a time. My friends, the social media team, I made them come. We'll create a big grid of boxes, and they will X out each box every time I do 100. But they can't tell me where I am at any point in time. I don't want to know. It'll only screw me up.
Did you make them do it with you?
No. They just had to play the music, and they had to mark up the things and have a camera on.
See, some people would be like, all right, you're fired. I can't believe that you did that without even telling me. And you were probably like, okay, I'm not maybe super thrilled, but I'm also kind of really excited to see what I'm made of, right?
I don't know how excited I was, but I got a yoga mat, started at midnight outside on a deck in New Jersey. Music was
played good music.
The only music we could get, this is how screwed up this was Captain and Tennille. And many of you listening, it was terrible. It was the worst possible. Anyway, I'm doing my burpees, 100 at a clip. Sometimes I do 110. We would put them, I told them, put those in the extra bucket. We'll count them up at the end. And now it was 8 a.m. I've been going 8 hours straight. Sun was coming up. And my burpee form became terrible. Terrible. That to the point where I would have to like get up on one knee and then stand up. And I just didn't know. This had never really, there was no, on the internet, there were no people trying to set these. This was early on in this whole thing. And I just didn't know if they would be counted or not. And I said to them, you know, how many have I done? And they said, well, you said we can't tell you. And I said, you better fucking tell me right now. I was at 4,100 or something. And I thought, gee, that's a good number. I mean, which is why I didn't want them to tell me, because I knew if I heard the number. By the way, had they said to me at that point in time, I was like at 6,200, I think I would have muscled it out. But
oh yeah,
I tapped out at 4,100. Now I'm pissed at myself because I'm never going to try it again. And had I known that the right amount of time to have attempted this was 24 hours, I could have taken a break. I was only 8 hours in. I could have taken a break.
Yourself. Yeah.
But no one had done this before. There were no rules. I didn't think through it. It was like you had to do them straight, nonstop, you know, which you didn't have to. Anyway, you're hearing a little bit of weakness in me. So
yeah, I mean, it's more just sort of. I think that's wisdom and perspective, right? It's like you like how do you eat the elephant, right? One bite at a time. You don't have to eat the whole thing in one sitting, but like you could pace it out. But you finished the 10,000.
I did them later in the week, but I don't count it because it was like, again, in my mind, I had to start doing burpees, and when I was at 10,000, I was done. But I didn't do that.
Yeah, but I love that the completist in you still needed to do it, even though it didn't count. Like you still needed to do it. Like that's a compulsion. Like that's a sickness that I can get behind. I appreciate that.
I have lots of sicknesses. Yes, that's one of them.
Well, now I want to know what the others are.
Well, I mean, I guess they're all tied to the same thing, but getting my kids up early in the morning, making them work out every single day, making them do math every day, making them do Mandarin every day, making my boys wrestle I definitely have issues. Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, look, at least we know what your kids are going to complain about on the therapist sofa. Like mine, it's a mystery, right? Like, I don't know. I think I'm doing things all right. Like, it's not clear how I'm abusing them. Like, at least we know with you how it's, I mean, do your kids ever just say like, come on, Dad, look, I know this is really important to you, but it's not important to me? Or is like, how does that conversation go?
Well, my younger boy, my second boy, he said, Mom, I think I'm in the wrong family. Yeah. So yeah, I get that, but I'm also a believer that, hey guys, here's the good news. I tell them, when you're 18, move out of the house, do whatever you want. But while you're here, this is what we're doing.
Yeah.
So by the way, guys, if you told me you'd rather do tennis or start a landscaping company or study French, whatever, I don't care, but we're doing it every friggin' day.
Yeah.
And we're getting after it.
It's the t-shirt, right? You got to do something.
Exactly. And if you don't, you know, if you don't have anything else, then you're doing my thing. Then we're doing my thing.
I can't believe they haven't come up with their own thing yet.
Yeah, anything to get away from me, right? But you know what happens? Let's look at the boys with wrestling. It's hard, really hard sport. It's an enormous amount of time. You don't see progress right away, but then you start to get friends that are there. Like you see the same faces the other crazy parents bring, right? Mm-hmm. You start to get a few wins under your belt, and all of a sudden, a couple of girls say, "Oh my God, I can't believe you got a six-pack."
Yeah.
Right. And so then it's now it's starting to like become their thing, and I don't have to push as hard.
Yeah, that's true. It really there is the gift of momentum, I think, is pretty good. And I think it's sometimes you provide the momentum, sometimes the people around you provide the momentum, right? But like everyone takes turns providing a little momentum, and the next thing you've gotten a little further through it. So I was the last thing that I want to talk about is the idea of the burpee in exchange for the obstacle, right? Where you like put together these events and you put the obstacles there. And in the beginning, if the question was, do we let people go around the obstacles, or do they have to go over the obstacles?
Yeah. So when we started, we created a sport from scratch, and there was no precedent, there was no rule book, and because people are motivated by that avoidance of discomfort, in those early races, I found people going around the obstacles or not, and it really pissed me off. And so I said, I have to come up with something. We have to come up with something that's worse than doing the obstacle. Oh, 30 burpees. So if you don't make the obstacle, you got to do 30 burpees. And people hate it. And my team has begged me to remove that characteristic of our races, that penalty. And my answer is no. We're on a journey, hopefully, to be an Olympic sport. And Joe, we can't have burpees if there's an Olympic. No.
Well, why not?
We're holding people to the standard. You can't finish the obstacle, you're doing 30 burpees. By the way, let's not forget our mission. We want to change 100 million lives. We want to get 100 million people healthy. The fastest way there is do burpees. Take cold showers, stretch, stay mobile. So I'm sorry, but we're sticking with the burpees.
Why did it upset you so much? Was it because you thought they weren't getting the full experience? Was it illogical? Like, why would you sign up for this and not do it? Like, that would make me crazy. Like, it just wouldn't make any sense. Or was it just like...
I wasn't doing this for a business. Like, I didn't wake up one day and say, man, I can't wait to make a bunch of money in this new event. Like, that wasn't what I was doing it because whether it was in business or life, I just hated being around people who didn't take their stuff seriously enough to play at the highest level they could play at, to be the best version of themselves. I'd see people quit at an Ironman race because it was raining. Like it just drove me nuts, or tap out on a business when it got tough, or whatever it may be. I just hated it. And so I was not going to be involved in a business where, again, I wasn't doing this for money, where a bunch of people showed up and if I feel like doing the obstacle, I'll do it. If not, I won't. Like, don't bother coming.
Yeah.
Go eat cotton candy and watch Netflix. This is not for you. I don't want to be around that. I want to be around people that are going to give it their best shot. And I tell my kids, my family, like, I don't care, win or lose. It's nicer to win. I don't care though. What I care about,
you got to show up.
Just show up and work hard. If you work hard, if you're the hardest working kid in the room, I'm the happiest dad on the planet.
Yeah. I told someone once that the secret to success is you got to show up, shut up, and do the work. Like, just show up, right? But doesn't this goes back to your childhood, right? There's a code on the street. Like, you show up, you do the thing. Like, you don't just like, I don't feel like knocking that guy off today. I'm not going to bother. But in all seriousness, right? This is something I feel like was ingrained in you early on. Like, you're there, you show up, you do the thing.
If you saw the movie Goodfellas, that was the neighborhood I grew up in. And obviously we're not recommending people get into doing bad things in their life, but like, whatever it is you do, the ancient Spartans believed we don't have to focus on legacy. What we have to focus on is doing a great job in the here and now. And if you do a great job in the here and now, you will be remembered. But that's not why we're doing it. We just got to do a great job in the here. Whatever it is we're doing, we're cleaning toilets, we're killing people, whatever the thing is we're doing obstacles. Let's do it to the best of our ability.
Had you gotten into the sort of the ancients earlier, or because you could have done this could have been anything. It could have been military style. It could have been focused around any sort of community, any sort of idea. So where did the Spartan thing come from?
Well, my mom, right? My mom was pushing the yogis and all the ancients, and so I was very interested in that. In school, I was really interested in history, and there's nobody more badass than the Spartans. In that ancient world, the neighboring cities and kings and queens and leaders would say, those friggin' Spartans, they like going to war because the training is so hard. They actually get a break when they go to war. And I don't know, that just intrigued me. Anybody that was willing to put in that kind of work. They ate one kind of food, black soup. They didn't get there are a lot of cool things about it. By the way, I mean, you go to Washington D.C. and there's a lot of ancient Sparta in our democracy. Like that, things came from ancient Sparta to create what we created. So, yeah, I'm tied to it. I love it.
Yeah, I think it's great. I love that they went to war to take a break from the training. I think that's great. I have what I've learned in becoming an athlete late in life is that the actual race is the victory lap, right? It's like the work that you do before, the early mornings when nobody sees, in the dead of night, the way that you eat when like when the race isn't tomorrow, but it's still 3 months from now. It's all those things you do when it's not glamorous. When you're like, that's the hard work, right? Like the actual showing up. That's the victory lap in the end.
I agree.
Yeah. So when do races come back? If people are like, I'm so inspired, I've always wanted to do this. I'm ready to be limitless as a Spartan.
Yeah, listen.
I have to just say the funniest thing I have to just say, the greatest thing is that when you write a book called Limitless and then you run into Joe Sena at the end of going 3 laps around the Harvard Stadium when he's showing up with his kettlebell and you're like, I'm all done. And you're like, I thought you were limitless. Come on, limitless. Let's go, limitless. And then you have to do another fucking lap around the stadium. Yeah. So never write a book called Limitless and send it to Joe. Just pro tip. Where do people find you if they're inspired and they're ready?
At Real Joe DeSena on Instagram, at Real Joe DeSena, and then shoot me an email, joe@spartan.com. Otherwise, check out spartan.com.
And when are races coming back? When do we hope? When do we think?
I mean, I'm shooting for Q1 next year. I'm crossing my fingers. I do a little dance around a fire in the backyard every night, trying to, like an old Native American dance, trying to get these races back.
And if people want to get started now in their home, in their living room, what are you telling people virtually? What do we do?
I got a virtual race coming. I signed over 3 million people up to a virtual race a couple months ago. I have a virtual race going on now. Go to Spartan.com, check that out. Otherwise, just take your couch outside your house, throw it on your back, and run around the neighborhood. Amazing.
Perfect. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do that tomorrow. I got an old couch we're getting rid of in the living room. I'm going to just walk around the neighborhood with it. Thank you. This has been amazing. If you are excited, if you are interested, please go join Spartan. Find Joe. We love it. It's a great show today. Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.